We're live, guys. Welcome to another episode. I believe we're on episode 14 today of UnHacked. Now, before we get started today, I really do have a serious question I want both you guys to answer. Bryan first and then Mario. Now, don't lie to me. This is a no shit. If we're going to be friends, I've got to know this. Bryan, are you a member of the Russian Mafia?
Oh, wow. No, the French one. No, I'm kidding. Nah, no, definitely. What? Yikes.
I'm serious. I need to know this. Mario?
I have an application pending.
Okay, see, I knew there was somebody here. Okay, so back to you, Bryan, and really both of you still. Do you support them financially in any way, shape, or form?
I mean, I've had clients who've paid ransoms before, so
kind of.
Yeah, not directly.
Do you provide any other resources to them that you can think of?
Not that I can think of.
Are you sure? All right. Well, I'm going to ask you guys this again at the end of the episode, but episode 14 today, we are talking about the Internet of Things.
Yes, we are.
What in the hell is the Internet of Things? And worse, what is IoT? Listen, in our world, we understand what this means. Our listening audience may or may not. I, again, was talking to one of our avid listeners, and the question once again was asked, hey, what are you talking about today on the podcast? And I said, Internet of Things. And she said, the fuck? Well, she didn't really say that, but what is, Mario, what is the Internet of Things? You want to go ahead and describe that in layman's terms for our audience?
So Internet of Things is pretty much what we've been living through for the last couple of years, and that means anything that is going to be accessed remotely, like right now we have refrigerators, doorbell cameras, toasters, anything that connects to a higher up, like, for example, Ring doorbells. I have one. I'm actually looking into adding some more Ring stuff like floodlights and stuff like that. Anything that communicates, using or is getting an IP address or internet for you to conveniently manage it through your cell phone.
Okay. Good. So, Bryan, question for you. How many devices in this little Internet of Things that we just described exist today?
Well, right now, we only have about, and I say only, it's a pile. We have 17 billion as of today, approximately, obviously, as of 2024. It's estimated that there will be approximately 25 billion or more by 2030. But listen, a bunch of years ago, IPv6, which is a technology for the internet, and I won't get into the specifics, I'm sure we can publish stuff about it. They changed the standards from one format to another that now allow up to 340 unidecillion, I can't even pronounce that, possible combinations. It's essentially, if you are a math guy, 2 to the power of 128. There's so many numbers on this thing, it's long. And they did that because of the Internet of Things and the ability to be able to have every device connected to the internet.
I don't know if you guys, I'll date myself here, but 1999 was a fun year in technology, wasn't it? We were afraid the whole thing was going to collapse because the early programmers only had these 2-digit year fields because memory was at a premium back then. I mean, now it makes no difference whatsoever if we're using 2 or 4 digits, but back then 2 digits was a big deal, and so they saved that memory. And then the year 2000 comes around, like, oh my God, are we in 2000 or 1000? We don't know. And computers didn't know. We thought planes were going to fall out of the sky and all that. So IPv4, if you're going to mention that, the Internet Protocol, basically this is the addressing scheme for every device that's connected to the internet. We went through, it wasn't as widely publicized, but a similar panic where we thought we were going to have to change everything over to IPv6. You guys, you were around for that, right? I mean, I panicked, everybody panicked. We started restricting who could use these addresses and whatever else. That panic largely went about away into the night like 1999 did. But it is still, something that has kind of happened behind the scenes that does allow for all of these connected devices to, like all my stuff is still IPv4. At least, web addresses, all that kind of stuff. Almost everything is still IPv4, but we do have this unlimited now because it was very limited before. We had this unlimited addressing scheme for all things that connect to, say, the internet, but really it's just, anyways, I'm not going to go there. So with this new way of addressing, we have unlimited access to all this. Unlimited devices can connect, I don't know, what'd you say, 16, 17 billion today?
Yeah.
What this does, the problem this creates, is it expands what we call the attack surface, right? What's an attack surface? Somebody, anybody? Bueller.
Yeah. Well, it's essentially anything that anybody can use to attack you. For example, if you get access to a couple devices, you can then utilize those to attack more devices. And so hackers don't typically hack a device directly. They always go through intermediaries. So either it's 1, 2, or 100,000 intermediaries to get to their ultimate destination. And they'll the attack surface, meaning if I can attack a organization with 100 devices, yeah, it might affect them a little bit. But if I can attack them with 100 million devices, now I could basically make them fall to their knees because they won't be able to process that much connections. So
okay, so
larger the attack surface, the better.
You're kind of talking about in the world of bots. Once you've already taken over these devices and you marshal the forces, the other way, and this is kind of more what I was thinking. However, both are true. An attack surface. If you think about, like, I suck at baseball, like really, really suck at baseball. When I was a kid, I have trauma over this. My coach was so disgusted with the way I threw the ball. He's like, "Can you just try, just for fun, humor me, try throwing it left-handed?" And I couldn't even, he wanted to make sure I was really right-handed and not left-handed because that's how bad. Anyways,
sounds like we had the same childhood.
Yeah. So, the saying goes, I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Now, true or not, let's put that aside. But if we expanded that wall to like a skyscraper, even me with my terrible skills using my left hand probably could hit a skyscraper with a baseball. So when we talk about an attack surface where people are trying to break in, we have to mathematically, we take the number of devices and we multiply it by the number of vulnerabilities per device. And you just threw out a number like 16 billion, whatever it was. Each of these devices probably has at least one or more vulnerabilities, right? Our surface, our risk has just gone through the roof. It's almost as mind-boggling as that number you tried to explain a minute ago, right? So what we have now is we used to just try to secure our computers. Back in my day, I'm an old man, we would just put a firewall in place. It protected all the little computers that we were managing, and that was it. We were done. That's all we had to worry about. And now we've got this basically infinite number of vulnerabilities that we have to watch over. So big problem is what I'm trying to say
and
here.
They're out of our hands. A lot of these times it's just we trust that these companies that we're purchasing these doorbells from or refrigerators from are doing a decent job, but there's like us as IT people, it's very hard for us to even govern that because we don't know what they're communicating back and forth.
I would argue that this is one of the biggest, most unaddressed problem in cybersecurity. Yes or no?
Agreed.
Yes.
Okay.
So, question for you, Justin. How secure are these devices?
Oh, they're so secure, and by the time we're done today, we will have solved all of the world's cybersecurity problems, not just this one. So with that,
stay tuned.
Shall we dig into today's episode? So, guys,
to be continued.
Real quick, today's intro has been a little longer than normal, but UnHacked, guys, is a weekly cybersecurity podcast where we talk directly to, our target audience is the owners and leaders of small to mid-sized businesses. Now, I'm not going to get into defining that because that's like saying what is large or how long is a string. Everybody has a different definition, but we are looking to people who are responsible for keeping their people, their assets, their finances, their money, their bank accounts secure from cyber criminals. That's not to say that there isn't value in this for home users, for individuals, for larger organizations, but we are specifically talking to this small set of business owners. Now, the intent of the podcast is if we did everything that we were advised to do, recommended to do, we would never end and we would never stop spending money. So we're trying to filter through the noise, the mountains and mountains of suggestions, and narrow it down to what are the things that we can do that cost the least in both time, effort, frustration, and money, and produce the biggest results. So, because the sad truth on cybercrime, I say this over and over, is that with basic security measures, 97% of these breaches that we talk about could have been prevented. But once you get hit, you can never get unhacked. So, all right, there we go. Let's go ahead and, like I said, a little bit long today on the introductions, but we do need to introduce myself and my co-hosts. And I would like to start with Mario, but Mario, I have another question for you. And what I really need to know is that between you and me, one of us pronounces your name wrong, and I'm not sure who it is, because I always call you Mario, and you come back with Mario. Or I don't even know. Is that an accent, or am I pronouncing it wrong?
No, it's I've for 44 years now, I've heard it different ways. I usually just say Mario.
Okay. I had to know because every time I introduce you, you come back and you say it different. Like, shit, I did it again. But I had to publicly confess.
Don't worry about
anyways,
it.
So tell our audience who you are, where you're from, something interesting about yourself, maybe the best thing that happened to you this week.
So Mario Zaki, owner of Mastech IT. We are located in New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan. We are approaching our 20-year anniversary, so this June will be our 20-year anniversary. And something interesting that has happened to me this week, business has been good.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I know. We're all jealous of Mario these days.
Next week, I've been prepping for my presentation, as you guys are aware of, in Nashville next week, where we will all be together live, and that I am presenting as a big deal as a production, for something called Better Your Best, in a group that we're all involved in. So I'm one of 5 finalists presenting next week. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, huge congrats. God, I can't even talk on just being there, right? Most of us are afraid to even submit the application. Not only did you do that, which is a painful process, but it's not that big. Would you argue that is it a big deal or not so much to apply? We're all afraid of it. It seems.
It's you just got to write the essay, and
how long did it take you to write the essay?
It took me a couple days, because once I really got into it, I kept going back and forth and adding more stuff to it. And they did comment that it looked like I spent a lot of time on my essay when I did submit it. So
a couple days.
They did,
followed by some prep work, some practicing. But the prize it's small. Like it's hardly even worth doing, right? If you win, what do you walk away with?
It's just a small sports car, Jaguar F-Type.
Yeah, exactly.
That I got to fit this big head in.
It might be worth your 2 days.
Yeah, for the record, Mario's going to be presenting in front of 2,000 people, and most people would prefer to die than present in front of a stage of that many people. So
it's true.
Kudos to you, Mario, and Mario, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. It'll be a good time. And little teaser, guys, we're going to be broadcasting live from Nashville. Not Mario's presentation, but we are going to be digging in to what I call the war room. We'll be down there with all the vendors who are trying to tell us how great and important their product is. And like I said, we're here to sort through all that and bring you the stuff that matters the most. So, okay, Bryan, what are you all about? Tell us about yourself, something interesting, something fun that happened,
Sure.
Give us a rundown.
Bryan Lachapelle with B4 Networks, based in wonderful Ontario, Canada, near Niagara Falls. We support all of the local businesses here and up in Simcoe County. Something interesting about me that probably nobody knows about in this podcast. So, somebody might. I'm actually an officer in the Canadian Forces. I work with the Army Cadets. I've been doing it for over 30 years. Just got my Canadian Forces decoration a couple of months ago for 22 years of service as an officer. And my responsibilities and job is teaching youth. So I love to teach. I love to teach IT and also youth leadership. So
I did, but I've forgotten. It's been a while. I'll see some of your stuff on Facebook once in a while. But yeah, that's pretty cool. How many years? 20 years? 22 years?
22. I've been in the Canadian Forces 23 years now, but I've been working with Army cadets for 30.
Okay. Dang.
So 12.
That is impressive. All right. And guys, sometimes I do forget to introduce myself. I'm Justin Shelley with Phoenix IT Advisors, formerly Master Computing. And I've been doing IT in some way, shape, or form since 1997. It's been a few years. I'd like to say I wish I knew more than I did, but I will say that I eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. And sometimes it wakes me up in the middle of the night, which is
Agreed.
partly why we do this podcast, to stay sharp, because we live in a world of cybercrime. I've said before, I'll say it again. This is not why I got into technology. I didn't come here because I wanted to fight Russian crime rings and find out if my buddies here are actually in the Russian mafia and I didn't even know it, or at least supporting them financially. We're going to come back to that. We're not there yet. But all right, enough of my nonsense, guys. Internet of Things. So we've talked about what it is, how many of them are out there. Some of the problems which we've already alluded to is that this poses a huge security threat, and that is because we've mentioned before that there's not the IT industry at large is not regulated. We don't have any government agency looking over our backs telling us how we have to deliver the service, or even any kind of licensing, or anybody can say, hey, I'm a cybersecurity expert. Anybody can say I'm an IT technician and charge you money and deliver a service,
Right.
good or not, right? So that's a problem, and this problem extends to the world of the Internet of Things. There isn't an agreed upon, it's not a regulated industry where there's an agreed upon set of standards that the developers, the manufacturers, have to follow in order to secure those devices. So we hope that they're doing something to lock them down. But as we're going to talk about today, we might need to up our game just a little bit. So some other problems with these, you guys want to jump in? What are some of the known issues or the struggles that we face in our world trying to lock down these devices?
Well, you just mentioned one of them, and that's that these developers don't have standards. But more importantly, in most cases, new upstarts are producing a technology to that fantastic, great products, and then somebody at the end, when they've developed the product, goes, hey, by the way, how are we going to secure this? And then they go, oh, right, we forgot about that. And then
Right.
they try to backwards engineer how they're going to secure something that was not started with security in mind from the get-go. And that is a problem. You can't secure something after the fact or very easily. And so a lot of these new products that are coming out, products that have been out for a while, and companies that have been producing these for a while, tend to have security in mind from the start. But a lot of these new technologies coming out, it's kind of an afterthought, and that's really scary.
And that honestly is a best case. Well, I mean, best case is, like you said, from inception, from the initial design, they're security minded. The more common case is it's an afterthought. And then the more frightening case is sometimes when we're buying this cheap garbage from overseas in unnamed countries, it can be built in, right?
So the security flaws
it's
are on
malicious,
purpose.
right?
Right.
It's malicious by design. So, I mean, God, I like to say this about apps that we download onto our phones, but I can say it also on cheap electronics devices. Like if you're getting the cheapest thing or something that's free, God forbid, the people developing it and producing it and delivering it are getting paid. So if you're not paying them, who is, and what is the product?
Right.
What is the product?
You're the product.
Well,
You
are
go.
You are the product. Yeah. If it's free, you're the product.
Right. Google's a great example. Everything we type in there is collected and sold. Every search, every movement, we use Google Maps, like everything we do is collected and sold. So I'm not trying to say like we have to run away from all this technology, but I am saying be aware. When you're downloading free stuff, when you're buying cheap garbage, you might be the product. So that's a potential issue with Internet of Things, with all these connected devices. What else do we have? Mario, you got something for us?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's a lot of this stuff. You're depending on them to also fix what they discover, and you don't know if they discovered it or not. Like, you go and buy like a camera on Amazon, for $30. You don't know if they actually figure out that there was a problem or not. It's not like a big like car where there will be a recall on it and say, okay, send us back. which, by the way, is one of the things I want to talk about today on a recall. But it's, sometimes it's to them, it's not worth it. And even if they do release an update to fix something, you have to be checking their website to say, hey, do I need to upgrade my system or not?
Yeah. How often do we look at our refrigerator and wonder if it needs to be a security patch or a firmware update?
Right.
Never. Right. So we hope that they're putting out these updates, but who's monitoring them? Who's pushing those updates?
Yeah.
I mean, we'd love to believe that they're automatic. Some of them are, but not all of them are. So, okay, what else?
Well, I'll give you a really quick example. With vehicles, when you purchase a vehicle and you own the vehicle, it's all run by software. Everything inside there is run by software. When's the last time your car was updated? Unless you're a Tesla, then it's updated over the air. But almost every other manufacturer, there are no updates. So if there's a critical flaw found, granted most of them aren't connected to the internet, the flaws are there and they're there forever.
Yeah. Things to think about. I mean, you can take it in the shop and they can update there are ways you can do a DIY update on your cars, but but do we?
Yeah, but then
do
everything
think
breaks
about
on it 2 months later.
You avoid the warranty.
Right. So, all right. What about passwords? Passwords on IoT, right? This is a big one.
Huge.
Copy machines, for example, that's one that I became aware of not real long ago. Because they all have default passwords. When I'm working on a client's, the big self-standing multifunction printers, copiers, fax machines, and I don't know how to get into it, I can usually Google that device and come up with the admin name and password. Not always, but usually I can do that. Well, if I can do that, so can a bad guy. So you get into somebody's network, then you break into their device. Well, what does that matter? Everything they've printed is, at least the recent stuff, is stored on a hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you can get into that. Now you've got, any confidential information that was printed, scanned, copied. We'll jump way ahead and get to our takeaways. Change your goddamn passwords on devices that you buy. When it comes set up with a default password, never use that. All right. So, I mean, we could go on here, but let's jump into some real world examples. And Mario, I've got you up first. And you said you had a lot. So I am afraid, actually, I'm maybe a little excited. This might be one of our longer episodes, which I'm okay with, by the way. We can dig into this one. I have to quickly tattle on myself. Last week, I thought it was so cute to announce that the topic was something that nobody was interested in, or at least one of our top fans was not interested in. And then I wrote the stupidest headline ever: passwords. Haven't we heard it all already? No. Something stupid ass like that. So far, now I know we're only on episode 14, our least downloaded episode ever. And if I go back to previous podcasts that I've been involved in, it still applies. The most undownloaded, disinterested, don't give a shit episode I've ever recorded. So
I can see that.
Lesson learned: know your audience. And I mean, maybe a better headline. I hope today's was a little bit better. That's why I kind of throw the Russian hacker thing in there. Jesus. Anyways, okay, with that intro, Mario, let's try to make this one a little bit more exciting than last week's title.
So an example that I have was actually a couple years ago. I leased a Jeep for my wife, and we had it for, I want to say, 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden we got a notice like, hey, there's a big recall on your Jeep that you need to bring back the car for us to update. And then we are like, oh my God, are we going to be doing this with Jeep, for the next 3 years of the lease? But the recall on it was people were actually able to remotely access a Jeep just by connecting to its built-in Wi-Fi. A lot of these cars now have built-in like 4G or 5G that can give out internet access, for like the kids sitting in the back with the tablet. They're actually able to remotely access the car and control everything about it, even the steering of the car. They could control your radio, they control your wipers, they could control what's happening on display. They can turn off your car. They can turn off the steering.
I'm not sure I knew they could get at the steering, and you're positive about that.
I just, in preparation for the show, I actually was just watching a YouTube video about a guys, that actually showed you they took over the car completely. And they were even able to put like their own picture on the radio.
Maybe this is why nobody listens to our podcast, because we scare the shit out of them. We don't want to know this stuff.
I didn't want to know that. The steering wheel thing.
Damn it, Mario.
Yikes.
Okay, go on.
So, when I found out what this recall was about, I was like, yeah, we got to get this, fixed right away. Since then, I believe they have fixed it, but, it's just an example of if it's on the internet, you don't know who's going to be able to access it or how they're going to be able to access it. And you're trusting that whoever's doing it is doing it correctly.
I'm hearing a lot of hope and trust in what you're saying right now.
My other thing that I remember this a few years ago, I think it was about 7-8 years ago, Home Depot had a major breach. And I think it was like 60 million people's credit cards were stolen.
That was a big one, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know the full details on it, but I do know that it was a vendor's information that got leaked because I believe they were able to access it through the HVAC system, the heating and air conditioning of the store. I don't know which place, but they were able to get it through there, and then they were able to all of a sudden just piggyback and
they were watching everybody's transactions as they came through.
Yeah,
that was a bad one. Yikes.
Yeah, okay. Those are the two big ones that I remember.
All right, Brian, it seems like you got some commentary for us.
Well, just playing off of what, because I didn't even think about cars, but playing off what Mario was saying, I remember, and I'm not going to mention brand names because that's not what I'm here for. But there was a brand name, very popular, very very expensive vehicle that had the way to get into the car to link it with your phone. So you would basically download their app and essentially the pin to get in and be able to access the car and connect it to the car was the VIN number, which is a very long, nice string of numbers. But unfortunately,
you can scan with your phone from outside the car.
From the outside, yeah, it's stamped on the outside. So high security there. Essentially, anybody who hadn't gone in and changed the default. And most people who bought these vehicles are traditionally the elderly because they're very expensive, and so mostly people my age or older, they wouldn't be changing these things, and so criminals were able to come in and just walk up to the car, type a few keys, boop, unlock the car through the provided unlock my car remotely system, and boom, they were into the car because that was the default.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Again,
Crazy.
Hope and trust might be misplaced.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another secondary purpose for our podcast is to expose these guys. Maybe we should start using brand names and calling them out. I mean,
they may have fixed it by now, but
I'm sure they did. But yeah, wow. Okay. All right. Now, Mario, did you wrap up or were you still going?
Yeah. No, I keep going for a while, but you go, those are the two big ones that I did. And I did mention, a couple of them by name because, it's out there. They're very popular. So
I go back and forth on whether I mention names or not. Sometimes I just like to be a dick. I don't know. I don't want to call people out on stuff. So anybody that knows me, that's not new information. So I'm not worried about it. Okay, Brian, what do you have for us?
Sure. So my example, so what Mario just talked about is essentially a one-on-one, right? We you were able to get into the vehicle, you were able to do something with one vehicle. My example is one where there were hundreds of thousands of devices out on the internet, all using a specific processor, and essentially there was a piece of malware that was going around, and it was more of a viral one, in fact. So what would happen, and it's called the Mirai botnet. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. And essentially, when one device got infected, it immediately went and started searching for other devices that it can see on the local network and on the internet that also had the same vulnerability using the same password or whatever the case may be, and it would infect those, in which turn would then turn around and start searching. And so we went from a couple of devices, and this back in 2016, by the way, a couple of devices to one of the largest botnets and a botnet is essentially just a group of infected devices, and the criminals had access to, I don't even know how many, because they don't know to this point roughly how many it is. They were able to essentially take down a lot of the very large media companies by doing essentially what's called a denial of service. So that all these devices trying to connect to those websites at the same exact time, which essentially just took down those websites because of the traffic. They just couldn't handle it. So things like Twitter, Reddit, CNN, Netflix. And so if you were watching Netflix back in 2016 and it went down, that's probably why. And so that was really, one of the more publicized cases of Internet of Technology devices being infected and being taken over. And the devices, essentially, the reason why it happened, one, they were using outdated software, because who updates software on a piece of hardware, right? You have got this little camera or this little doorbell or this little device on your network. Who would even think to, go and update it? And back, 5, 6 years, 9 years ago, essentially, that wasn't, something that many manufacturers were really concentrating on. Now, if I go into my app for my cameras, it says, oh, there's an update. Do you want to apply? And you hit yes, and they go and apply, and then promptly they disconnect and you can never get them back up and running. But that's a whole different story. And so a lot of these devices were being shipped with default passwords, or worse, no passwords. By default password, I mean, admin, or, something like Justin was talking about, where it's publicized out on the internet. And, again, you install a device, back then, and even in some cases now, you're not even prompted to change the password. So it's just, here's the password. And it just stays like that. And those devices, again, all have built-in software, and they're not set it and forget it. They actually have to be updated on a regular basis to, like Mario said, when the manufacturer detects that there's a problem, they can send out an update in a best case scenario, because a lot of the times these companies go bankrupt before they, and then nobody's watching out for those. So, basically, that's one of the real world examples that's on a larger scale that I really had nothing to do much with, other than helping clients who may have gotten attacked at the time. But a real world example of something that I personally dealt with, I wanted to touch base if I'm allowed, if I can.
Yeah,
Justin.
for sure. That's the good stuff.
Is something that I dealt with personally. It's not on a grand scale, but I want you to imagine you're a brand new large medical facility. You know how these medical facilities are eating up all the local doctors, of course, across North America, right? You used to have local family doctors, and now there's these big, corporations coming in, and, next thing you know, there's 20 doctors working on one roof with a pharmacy and, a massage clinic and a chiropractic, and they have they're basically they cover everything from start to finish, right? And so this medical facility, they have all sorts of technology in here, one of them being a brand new state-of-the-art HVAC system, air conditioning and heating system that controls the whole building. Of course, it has access, connect to it via, the local network. And then they had a parking system also connected via local network. We're all running, really outdated versions of Windows, but that's besides the point. And then the HVAC company thought they'd get clever. They wanted to be able to help the client. They wanted to help them. So they set up a Rogers Rocket Hub, which Rogers is essentially in Canada our version of whatever cellular communication networks you guys got down there. Rogers is ours. So they set up a Rocket Hub, which is essentially just internet through cellular, and he hooked that up to the network without telling anybody. Highly secure. Forwarded the ports. I won't get into the technology, the technical aspects, but basically set it up so he could remotely access it and be able to help the building managers do whatever they need to do.
Let me ask you real quick.
Yeah.
How was he able to set it up without anybody knowing? Was it on a guest wireless network, or?
Yeah, he was on site. So he just took this little, and this, granted, this is not somebody who was utilizing us on an ongoing basis. They was just
but he knew
hey, by the way,
the code for the Wi-Fi, or was it plugged it into a network?
No, this is a physical device. This is a physical box that has antennas.
How did he connect it?
He just physically plugged it into the network.
It's a hotspot.
Oh, I'm
Physically
sorry. I'm
plugged it
sorry.
in.
This is
Yeah.
this is the hotspot itself that he plugged in.
This
Is that
is
what
the
you're saying?
hotspot itself. Yeah, this is a cellular
Oh, God.
hotspot. He plugged it into the network so he can remotely access the HVAC system on the network. And so essentially there was two
Okay.
routers, two ways in, two internet connections, one being used by
Oh.
everybody else, one being used just by the
Which
HVAC
PS isn't the
company.
right way to do anything, which is why you lost me for a second there.
Right.
Like, wait, what?
Yeah, it was
He did
definitely
what?
You're being
Yeah.
too logical.
I know.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
All right, go
so
on.
this all done with the customer's best interest in mind, I'm sure.
Sure.
So he had this device, and of course, hackers
We'll go
got
with
through it because it's not secure, it's not set up properly, it's completely done the wrong way. They were able to not only access the HVAC system, turning up and down the temperature, just like literally like goofing off with them. And I'm sure there's multiple hackers because if it was the guys who had access to the parking system and siphoning off thousands of dollars from the parking system every month, they wouldn't have turned up and down the temperature, right? They would have just left everything as is, just so they can continue collecting their stay quiet. And it wasn't like they were taking 100% of, and I don't even know how they did it, but we shut down. Point being, but we detected it because they kept saying, hey, our temperature, it keeps going up and down, and we can't figure out what's going on. So we went in and we found this device and found that people were accessing it remotely, and were able to shut it down. And the manufacturer of the HVAC system had published the password online, and it was set to the default login and password, of course. So, right. So yeah, all that to say, you never know what vendors will do when they're setting up devices that are essentially Internet of Things. It's an HVAC, but it's an Internet of Things that was connected to the network. So
this is honestly why I said at the beginning that this is probably one of the biggest challenges that we face in the world of security, cybersecurity. Because it's so easy to connect so many different things, and it is hard to detect them. It's hard to know that this is happening without a lot of effort. We'll come back to that as we wrap things up on what we can do, but that's exactly what makes this so scary.
Well, also too is like, I mean, you can just go on YouTube and just search for it. Like, there's been plenty of examples of like baby monitors or webcams, that have been hijacked or taken over, or I remember seeing videos of a kid sitting in his crib, and there was somebody just sitting there talking to this baby, right through this webcam, through the baby monitor. There are a lot of stuff out there that is not regulated, that it happens.
Right. Well, there was another example, speaking of cameras, and you mentioned a great big one last week, Mario. You kind of got ahead of us with your camera takeover. This was Nest. I will use their name because, again, I'm pulling this from a news article. No personal experience here. But they showed a video clip of a white hat hacker. Now, this is somebody who hacks with good intentions. I will say that it is still a federal crime to access somebody's technology, somebody's network, without their permission, without their knowledge. So still criminal behavior, but he was able to hack into somebody's Nest camera, and he just starts talking to the guy. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm just a hacker. I'm with Anonymous, Calgary, in Canada, of course, you Canadians." And the guy's like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just here to let you know." And the guy's like, "Well, thanks, I guess. I mean, can you see where I live?" But I mean, the guy's talking to him and watching him in his own home by a hacked Nest camera. So,
and these are online right now, Justin.
I know.
If you want me to share the website,
sure.
There's INSECam.com. You can go there, and there's live websites all over the world, or live camera feeds from all over the world that are insecure cameras that you can connect to right now. Some of them are just like publicly available cams, so be it. But some of them are not. And so,
what was that address again?
INSECam, so insecam.com.
Oh, NSECam. Okay. See, I want to go to it.
Which is funny because the website is insecure too. So,
and as I typed it wrong, which is the way they like us to get to bad websites, something else came up completely, which who knows? Maybe I just got it now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm stopping there, Brian. I don't know what kind of website you're trying to get me to go to, but that one,
sorry.
Like you said, it's not a secure website. I haven't yet, but I'm going to set up a testing lab that's completely isolated from everything else, so I can actually go in and do this kind of stuff. But probably not on a live recording.
One of us gets hacked live on
I know. That would be funny for a minute. Okay, so What else we got, Brian? I think I kind of interrupted you. What else did you have?
No, that was the
Did
whole
you get
thing.
through all of them?
Yep, I got through what I wanted to talk about.
Okay. So one of the ones that I saw that I thought was interesting, and I don't know if this is what you were talking about with the unnamed car manufacturer, but I'm in a mood today, so I'm naming names. I'm pointing fingers. This one was Tesla, and again, this wasn't. It was white hat, but I don't think it was a proof of concept. Like I think it was done in a controlled environment, if I remember right. But the guy is a PhD student. He, with $195 worth of equipment, and I'll keep it short because it gets kind of technical. But he was able to reverse engineer Tesla's security. He got some parts from a scrapped Tesla, reverse engineered that, figured out how their Bluetooth worked, and he was able to intercept somebody's basically their key fob, but it's just an app on your phone, and he was able to assign himself as a user on the car and start it up, unlock it, start it up, and drive away. So
Yeah.
That again is one that's been identified. It wasn't ever used maliciously. It's been patched. It's been fixed. But it just does illustrate I guess I just want to say the complacency, because I was going to say careless. I don't like careless. I don't think we're careless, but we do get complacent. We get so dependent on technology that, if I could have one key takeaway today for the audience, it's just pay attention to what you're doing and think it through. Like everything you do, everything that's convenient, everything that's connected, everything that is a benefit, it comes at a cost. And what is that cost? And just be aware of it. Like, I don't think we're going to, I jokingly said, if you didn't catch it, that was sarcasm, that we're going to solve all the world's cybersecurity problems on this episode today. We're not even going to come close. But if
We're
we
not?
could, I know, it's sorry, wrecked everybody.
Our users just plummeted.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm watching them
rich.
fall off of the live feed. Everybody's just dropping off right now. But I do think that awareness is probably our biggest weapon as we're fighting this war, because this is just an ongoing war, and they come up with better weapons and we come up with better defenses. And rarely do we play offense, but I will also kind of piggyback. Today is one of the times where we can play offense, because a lot of, in some cases when they hack our devices, it's malicious towards us. But like Brian, the one you mentioned, the biggest one ever, they were marshaling people's devices to wage war on somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm going to bring this back to my introductory question. Are we members of the Russian mafia? Are we supporting them financially, or at least giving them resources? And I will argue that we are. If we aren't paying attention to this, if we aren't locking down our devices, if we aren't changing passwords, if we aren't updating firmware, if we aren't at least aware of what we're doing, every time we download something, every time we plug something into somebody's network, our own network, a client's network, like if we aren't paying attention, then we are in fact supporting these nefarious organizations. So again, awareness, I think, is the number one thing I would like to bring to our audience's attention today. That said, awareness isn't really something tangible. It's other than, guys, just keep listening to our podcast and you're going to be more aware, and you might not sleep at night. Sorry for that side effect. But what are some other takeaways, guys, that you've got out of this? What are some recommendations if we, again, want to boil this down from the million, billion, trillion things that we all have to do and pay for and give our time and attention to? What are the biggest bang for your buck that we can recommend in the world of Internet of Things?
I don't necessarily buy the cheapest thing out there. Like when you're researching, when you're going out there and you're comparing like some products, don't compare based on price. You want to kind of compare also on reputation. I know we mentioned like, companies like Nest and Jeep and stuff like that. These are obviously well-known companies, and they admitted that there was a problem and they addressed it. But some of these no-namers or fly-by, companies may not, and they will probably just rather rebrand under a different name than to sit there and collect back, all these devices, or try to figure out a whole new engineering team to kind of fix their mess. So I know myself. I have, my house, it's wired up. I got light switches that I can control from my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I could open up my garage. I could unlock my front doorbell. I can, watch.
When you go home today, Mario, just know that your garage door is going to be open, and it was me.
Yeah, and I'm using some major companies, like and stuff like that. But it unlike a lot of the things that we've been discussing previously, this is one thing that it's going to be hard for us to just give you an answer like this is what you do to be safe. But you have to kind of do your homework. I feel like you have to kind of go with a company that's been around, kind of well known, maybe a little more expensive, but you're paying for name, not just something cheap out there on the internet.
I want to tangent a little bit on cheap versus TCO, total cost of ownership. Okay, so this honestly is one of my biggest frustrations in working with clients, some of them in particular, some more than others. But I made this example on selling a workstation to a client, and they wanted to go out and find some cheaper brand that was about 30% less. That thing over its life, number one, it comes with less resources, so the employee, the end user, is going to be frustrated with it. It's a poorly built machine, so it's not going to last as long. And I did the math on what they wanted to buy versus what I wanted to sell, which came with a 5-year warranty, which is managed end to end. And I can actually show mathematically that the higher cost machine, even though it was almost twice the price, everything that I was proposing to them was about twice the price, the initial cost of what they were proposing or what they countered with. But the cost of ownership amortized out over 5 years, which is what I was guaranteeing this equipment would last for, was about 40% less than their cheap purchase. Right. So it's hard to think this way because we have so many ways, whether it's Amazon or Walmart or all the other names that I'm naming today. We've become a society of cheap and quick and convenient. And when we look at the overall cost over the life of the device, and especially where security is concerned, so we get a cheap camera or we get a cheap, and not always the case, as you pointed out last week, Mario, with the expensive cameras that got breached. But when we get these cheap devices and then they get breached, and then the cost that comes with, man, spend a few bucks and don't get that product off of Amazon whose name you can't pronounce. Because, and honestly, it's getting harder and harder to find name brand devices on Amazon. I struggled with that the other day. I don't remember what I was looking for, but I couldn't even find a name that I recognized. And so I didn't buy any of them because that kind of scares me. But yeah, put a little money into it, put a little thought into it, and at least we can hedge our bets there. Back to that hope and trust thing, we've got a little bit if it's a name we know. Okay, what else? What are some other takeaways, Brian?
Yeah, my takeaway is this. Recognize that everything that can connect to the internet has software. If it can connect to the internet, if you can connect to it through Bluetooth, if you can connect to it through some sort of device, if it has a screen on it, it has software that's inside that device. It's not just a piece of hardware. And everything that has software should or can be or should be able to update. And so recognize that if you have devices that you're currently utilizing that you purchased a while ago and haven't done anything with, and they connect to the internet, you may want to look at them and you may want to take a look to see if they can be updated. I'll give you a really cool example of what people can do with hardware. And you two will know about this. So there's this popular game back in the day called Doom. And they were able to take the game Doom and put it on a pregnancy test screen, right? Like they were able to program a pregnancy test screen to play Doom, the computer that's built into this pregnancy test. Now they had to like mash it up a bit and they hacked it a bit. But point being is that the hardware built today is extremely, extremely versatile. Just because a manufacturer is using it to, for example, show you the temperature on a screen doesn't necessarily mean that device can't be re-engineered or rehacked to then access your internal network through a Bluetooth connection, right? Every device you're using, verify that it has the ability to update, and if it doesn't, toss it, because if it can't be updated, it's not good. And if it can be updated, update it. And if they've stopped supporting it, get rid of it and buy something new. And I know that sounds horrible in today's recycle everything and green, but better be secure than not.
Yeah, for sure.
It's ironic that they picked Doom on a pregnancy test, because I guess if you if your girlfriend tells you she's pregnant,
I'm not touching that one.
I don't know. That's me. I guess that's where my mind wandered. I was like, that's very fitting.
Yep, for sure.
Wait, aren't you married?
I am, and I have 2 kids.
And a girlfriend? Yeah, just kidding.
Right. Again, I'm not touching any of this. You guys,
Zaki's gonna come in and attack me.
You guys are all gonna get in trouble. Okay, so I want to wrap this up. I think we've talked about some good things. We've given some good advice. Probably maybe done a little more damage than good as far as the fear goes of this. If we've talked about a lot of home devices, cars, personal stuff. So if we bring this back to the small to mid-sized business that we're talking to, and let's say I'm the owner and I'm not an IT guy of a company with 50 employees, I'm terrified. I got to this point in your guys' podcast and I flipped you all off, and I went back to my business and I threw all my equipment in the garbage and I walked away, and I went and I don't know. Whatever. What do I do? As a business owner, and now I've got all of my employees bringing in smartwatches, their BYOD phones that we know about, phones, tablets, hotspots. What else? All this stuff is getting added to my network. What the hell do I do about it? Anybody?
I'd like to tackle that one. So, because I have a very we have a lot of greenhouse clients, and greenhouses, I don't know if you're aware of, they have a tremendous amount of technology in their environment, and they're bringing in third-party IoT devices for temperature sensors, for all sorts of automation devices, and so we implemented this across the board, and I recommend that anybody who has a business have this. So we recommend having, especially a lot of these connect via Wi-Fi. So we use a technology called VLANing. So it's just essentially segregating the network into different segments. We have one segment for all devices, any device, whether it's like a temperature sensor, whether it's a TV connection. They all get segregated onto a separate network that all they can do on there is access the internet. They can't access each other, and they can't access anything other than the internet. Another network for all the internal communications, like your computers and your devices, and then a third connection for all of your staff's random stuff, right? People who bring in a phone and they want to connect it to the internet, a guest who comes in, and again, that device, that connection can only access the internet, can't access each other. So if you set it up in such a way, then the devices that you're connecting to your systems, they can be programmed. For example, if a device does need access to something on the network, I can say, well, that device has access to this device, and I can program it. It's a little more complex, but that's what you have IT people for. That's what we're here for, is making sure that all of these IoT devices that are being put into a corporation are being tracked, so we know that they're there, and we know when there's a problem, so that what it is and who made it, and when it was purchased, and serial numbers and model numbers, and everything is set up in a way that is segregated from everything else. So
yeah, exactly. Bringing that back to layman's terms, it's segregate your network. And I'm not even going to try to describe it any more than you did. I will just say, as a business owner, this is not your world. Don't do it. This is not something that the DIY technology person is going to do where security is involved. So
your grandson or your nephew's child won't be the proper person to do this for you. Maybe they will, but by and large, no.
If I can also add on to that, even in not just that, but even if you don't have these devices on your network, you should create a guest Wi-Fi in your business, and do it the right way. It has to actually be configured correctly, not just another broadcast saying guest, but it's connecting to the same network. So, we set up offices all the time. They want people to come in to bring in their laptops and connect to the internet. They have to be completely different than what you are using on your work computer. So pretend that it's a different internet service provider completely. But we can do it where it's like that, but it's not really that way, but it's done securely.
Right here again, it's got to be done correctly, professionally, and you need the right equipment to do that right, because a lot of the Wi-Fi access points or routers, you can easily create these other networks, but we need to make sure that the network doesn't cross-contaminate, right? So
Correct.
not just for guest users, but yes, a separate network for these devices, the Internet of Things devices, would make it easier to track them and understand where they live. I will say, though, it's going to become a game of educating your people once you get these set up. Because they bring their laptop in and connect to the corporate network, they need to then pair their smartwatch to the IoT network, right? So this is not an easy one. This is a big one, guys. What else? So we've got segregate the network. What I will say, though, is make it easy for your people to do this, because we've talked about shadow IT before, which is basically an end user trying to accomplish something and doing it without the assistance or knowledge of the IT department or IT company. And if we can make it easier for them to bring their devices and do the things that they want to do so that we can at least be aware of it, then we're at least, we're mitigating a problem. But if we try to say, hey, don't pair your smartwatch, don't bring in your, connect your phone to Wi-Fi or whatever, they're going to do it anyways, but they're going to do it the wrong way. So make it easy.
Right.
Make it easy for them to do the things that they want to do. Make it easy for them to do their jobs, and even to do some of the things in their personal life that they're going to do anyways, right? So we can tell them not to, but do it, make it easy so we can control it and manage it.
And do it early. Like, it's much easier to do it when you're first setting up everything,
right?
Than to have to go back and redissect everything that was already done improperly. And it'll probably cost you too.
What I'll say to that, though, is when's the best time to plant a tree, Mario?
Right now.
20 years ago. 20 years ago was the best time to plant a tree. What's the second best time to plant a tree? Right now.
Right now.
Right. So yes, ideally do this from the beginning. I'm guessing most haven't, so let's do it now. And with that, let's kind of come back to our ongoing offer on the podcast here. Is any listener, any organization who listens to this is welcome to sign up for a free cybersecurity assessment, vulnerability assessment. And to do that, just go to our website, unhacked.live, not .com. I think that one was $10 million to buy that domain, unhacked.live. And not only can you grab this free assessment, you can schedule that. It also has links to our social media. So we've got a YouTube channel where we stream live, and then we'll go back and edit and publish. And then we have a Facebook group where we stream live, which is also where we'd like you to join that group and communicate. We will list upcoming episodes. Give us the questions that you've got. Help us create content that is useful for you and not just like, passwords where nobody wants to hear it. And get to know us, get to know your host. So join the Facebook group. Next week, by the way, just kind of a precursor, we are going to be in Nashville, like I already said. We are going to go and interview some of the top security experts in the industry, and possibly some new products, maybe some clarification on some that we already use and recommend. But this should be a really good kind of a look behind the scenes of what we do to vet this stuff, because just like we're trying to help you, our audience, kind of boil this down to the key stuff, we as providers, if we went out and signed up with every vendor who was telling us that their stuff is the only thing that we need, we'd go broke, right? And we wouldn't have any customers either. So we're going to go through, we're going to filter through that and bring you the best of the best.
Can we give Bryan our haircut next week too? Like, can we get him
Brian's going to shave his head live.
Match?
Yeah, because you have to be bald. He's getting the beard, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, we'll hold him down and shave him up live next week as well.
Come on, it will match. Like, all three of us will look exactly the same.
I think it's a great idea, Mario. New rule: if you want to be on the podcast as a host, you have to have a bald head. It makes you look smarter, by the way. Okay, so guys, let's go ahead and wrap up. Final invitation: if this has been of any value to you, please share it. Help us spread the word. Let people know about the podcast. You can listen to it everywhere: Apple, Google. I heard Google Podcast is going away. Do you guys know if that's true?
I wouldn't be surprised. Google
Yeah.
loves taking away stuff after they get people hooked on it.
I mean, to be fair, it's on YouTube and they own YouTube, so whatever. We're there. You can listen to us on Facebook Live, Spotify, whatever. So take a listen. Tune in next week, and we'll bring you the best of the best from the War Room in Nashville. With that, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Bryan, any final words? Mario, any final words?
The only final words I have is, we love to scare. Well, I don't love to scare, but we do end up scaring people about cybersecurity. But the one thing I want everybody to take away is just get started. Just do one thing every day. Get 1% better every single day, right. And by the end of the year, you'll have gotten so much better.
Yep.
And for me, honestly, I just say, if you're gonna do it right. Do it. Have a professional do it, because you don't want to think that you did it. You secured your network and it's not done correctly. So, have another set of eyes, take a look, and confirm if it was done correctly or not.
All right. And last thing I'll say is, listen, nothing's 100%, but we can get pretty damn close. 97% of the breaches we talk about were preventable, right? 97%, that's a lot. For the other 3%, get insurance, right? And then go to bed and sleep, because it's the best we can do. Nothing's perfect, but what we don't want to do is be that low-hanging fruit that we've talked about several times. So with that, we'll sign off, and we will see you next week live from Nashville. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.